Today we're talking about two of my favorite topics. That is reducing food waste and saving money in the kitchen, and we're gonna do it all while playing a fun little detective game. More on that later. First, let me ask you, how often do you find yourself searching through your fridge and throwing things out because you didn't know you had something and it went bad? Or you go to the grocery store to buy something for a recipe only to come home and find out that you have already what you needed at home. Well, you're definitely not alone because I have been there too. But today I'm gonna share with you how I make a zero waste, delicious meal prep. And I'm also gonna make some desserts and some meals also, all using what I already have in my fridge, pantry, and freezer. Now, before we get cooking, I want to talk to you guys about something really cool, and that is June's Journey. I've worked with them before here several times on my channel. And if you haven't heard of it, it's this amazing hidden object mystery game that lets you travel back in time to the glamorous 1920s. You can solve exciting mysteries and also decorate your own island. But what's really special about this game is that it's not just about solving mysteries, it's also about making a positive impact in the real world. June's Journey is participating in the Green Game Jam for the 4th time this year. It's a global initiative where game studios come together to promote environmental actions. This year, June's Journey is all about empowering us to make small, impactful changes that can help the environment, and more than 500 players have already participated. So whether it's planting a tree, recycling, or doing a zero waste meal prep like we're doing today, every little action counts. So let's talk about how you can get involved with the June's Journey Green Game Jam initiative. From now until September 16th, you can participate in the Seeds of Kindness Challenge. It's super easy. Just complete a green activity like the zero waste cooking that we're doing today and share a photo of your action for a chance to win some exciting rewards in the game. And trust me, the rewards are worth it. Plus, there's a special Harvest Festival event happening in the game from September 9th to September 15th. You can play daily for a chance to win a never before seen decoration for your island in the game. I'll have the QR code on the screen right here so you can scan that with your phone if you're watching on a monitor or a TV. And I'll also have a link in the description box below, so head down there and click on that to download the game so you can join in the fun. So don't forget about the Harvest Festival Challenge happening September 9th through the 15th, and that Seeds of Kindness Challenge that's running through September 16th. Once again, you can download the game via the link in my description box below. You guys know I travel a lot for work, so I love downloading games like June's Journey to play while I'm traveling for work. Thank you again to June's Journey for sponsoring. Now let's get to cooking. So this is more of a meal, but I wanted to still share it because I did make it for a meal, but then I also kind of prepped it for a dish to give away to someone. So just some more ideas about how to use up stuff in your pantry. So I have some chicken breast that I thawed out that was in my freezer, and I'm just using some barbecue rub to season that on both sides. This particular rub has salt in it, so you don't want to add any salt and pepper. For this, what I'm doing is I'm just going to season my chicken and put it in the refrigerator to just kind of sit and marinate for a bit while I make the rest of the meal. I'm also making some homemade mac and cheese as well as some chocolate silk pie. I volunteer for an organization called Lasagna Love, but sometimes I like to switch it up and not make lasagna. I always check with the person first, but on this weekend I was delivering to someone and I asked, hey, would it be okay if I brought you mac and cheese with barbecue chicken and a salad? And they said yes. So this is my mac and cheese recipe that I always use. It's out of one of my super old Taste of Home cookbooks, but it's really good. So I just add some butter to a skillet. I melt that. I add some flour and then some salt and pepper. Basically, you're just making a roux. And then you want to add your milk to that and just cook it up until it is a thick white sauce. For this, you do end up adding Velveeta cheese to it. And then you also add a combination of cottage cheese and sour cream. I know every time I make this recipe, I have someone comment that they don't like cottage cheese, and I know it sounds weird, but you really cannot taste it in the finished dish. If you really wanted to, you could definitely puree the cottage cheese, but it just kind of adds a richness to the cheese sauce and it keeps it moist as it bakes up in the oven. So I also boiled my elbow macaroni. I like to use traditional elbow macaroni for this, but you can use whatever pasta shapes that you have. So just make sure that you cook this over like medium-low heat because cheese sauce does have a tendency to scorch on the bottom of the pot. So just make sure that you stir it constantly and watch that. Once the macaroni noodles are done cooking, I just cook them for about 7 minutes. I make sure that they're still just a little bit chewy because they will continue to cook in the oven. So this recipe makes quite a large batch of macaroni and cheese. So I split it in between 2 pans. And this is the part that you could definitely prep ahead of time. Just stick it in the fridge, and when you're ready to bake it later, just bake it at 350 until it is heated through. I am going to show you guys how I make some delicious, they call it Bishop's chocolate pie, which is actually a restaurant that was here in the Midwest many, many years ago. But this is a recipe that was passed down to me by my mom, so I can type it out or link it down below. Basically, it's kind of like a traditional pudding pie, except you add melted ice cream to the filling. I know it sounds weird, but just go with me on this. So I'm actually using sugar-free pudding to try and cut down on the sugar and calories in this a little bit. So I have some Fairlife milk in my bowl, and I'm just gonna beat that up with my hand mixer with 1 packet of chocolate pudding. And actually I think I used a packet of cheesecake pudding because that's what I had on hand. It all works fine. And then once that's mixed together, you can add 2 cups of your melted ice cream. Just make sure that everything is well combined. The ice cream doesn't have to be totally melted, but it has to be soft enough to be able to mix it in with the filling. So I usually just set it out on the counter for about 30 to 45 minutes, and it is perfectly soft. Once the filling is all mixed together, you can just add it to a graham cracker pie crust. You can also use a pre-baked regular pie crust if you wanted to, but the graham cracker crust is super easy. And that's what the recipe calls for. And then you just stick this in the fridge until you're ready to eat it. Make sure you let it refrigerate for a couple hours so it gets to be solid. For the barbecue chicken, how I cook this is I just have a nonstick skillet with a little bit of oil in the bottom, and then I just take my seasoned chicken breasts and saute those until they are almost cooked through. You want to make sure that you don't burn them on the outside, but you definitely don't have to cook these all the way through because you're going to bake them a little bit in the oven. You can see I have my little disposable pan there, and I squirted some barbecue sauce in the bottom. So basically what I do is I just brown these chicken breasts on both sides. Once they're mostly cooked through, I add them to a baking dish covered with barbecue sauce, and that's about it. Then at this point, you could obviously prep them ahead of time if you wanted to have them later in the week. In this case, obviously I'm going to cook them for dinner, but that is an option if you want to make them ahead of time. Then I just cover it with foil, and I put it in the oven until the chicken is all done. In this case, I put it in the oven along with the mac and cheese, and I was making 2 meals, one for us to deliver and one for us to have for dinner that night. The amount of time you have it in the oven is definitely going to depend on how thick your chicken breast is. I would say start with like 375 for maybe 10 minutes if they're mostly cooked through on the stovetop, and that would probably be fine, but definitely use a meat thermometer if you're not sure. The meal I was delivering, I made a side salad with some ranch dressing. Here's a look at our finished chicken. I'm just leaving that covered with foil, and then our mac and cheese is done as well. I did sprinkle some extra cheese over the top of that. You can add breadcrumbs, but I normally don't. And then here is what our dinner looked like. So we had mac and cheese, barbecue chicken, and a salad on the side. And I actually made a barbecue chicken salad out of mine. This salad was super good. I put ranch dressing on it, and it was delicious. So let me show you guys how this pie turns out. And you can keep this in the fridge for a couple of days at least. And I'm gonna very professionally take it out with a fork. Normally I would top this with Cool Whip, but again, I'm trying to use what I have on hand, and I have some Ready Whip, so I would just do this. So professional. And this tastes exactly like a chocolate silk pie, and then normally I just put some chocolate chips over the top. So definitely try this pie recipe. Like I said, you can make it a little bit healthier by using low sugar ice cream, low sugar pudding, and a higher protein milk if you want, but I will have the recipe for you guys down below. So the next thing I'm gonna meal prep is just a salad that I have all the ingredients for. So I Googled kale feta salads, and I came up with this. So I'll link this recipe down below. It's from peasandcrayons.com. It is a quinoa kale salad with lemon dressing. So I've got some quinoa, olive oil, chickpeas, vinegar, kale, garlic, salt, pepper, some dill. You could use dried or fresh. I just happen to have some fresh in my refrigerator. Broccoli, this is looking a little bit questionable, so I'll probably have to cut some of that bad part off. Lemon, red pepper, red onion, and feta cheese. So the recipe says to toast the quinoa in a dry pan before you add the water. So I'm just going to do this for a couple minutes, and then I'll add about 1.5 cups of water and simmer it for probably about 12 to 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is salvage this broccoli, which it's actually still good. I just kind of cut off the little brown parts on the bottom. I feel like this is a great recipe to just kind of use up what you have in your produce drawer, because definitely you could substitute many different veggies for this. I much prefer to buy feta in like full blocks because it tastes so much better when you cut it up yourself. It's kind of like the difference between buying pre-shredded cheese and like cheese on a block that you shred yourself. But the best way to chop this up is to basically roll it up into a ball and then just thinly slice it or shred it. Obviously you can cut it as small or as big as you like, but in a salad like this, I kind of want it to be chopped into smaller pieces so it's easier to eat. Then we need the juice of 1.5 lemons. Okay, the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of olive oil, but I'm just gonna do 1. So I'm trying to cut down on the calories in this. Teaspoon of vinegar. And then we need a clove of garlic. Normally in a dressing like this that has lots of lemon juice, I do like to add, I don't know, maybe about 1/2 tablespoon of honey. Then we need pepper. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the dressing in here. So I'm gonna give this a toss. The recipe calls for almonds, but I really like the combination of walnuts with feta. So I think I'm gonna toast up some almonds, or I'm sorry, some walnuts, so we'll put those in there. We're gonna add our chickpeas, and then here's the walnuts. Here's how this salad turned out. Definitely recommend this. This recipe is a keeper. I did add a little bit more lemon juice, salt and pepper, but it's really good. And it's gonna be great for meal prep this week. So I'm gonna prep some sirloin steak, and this is going to be tequila lime flavored. I'm using this because I've had it in my cupboard for a while, and I just discovered it when I cleaned out my spice cabinet. I've never used this before, so hopefully it's good. It's from Whole Foods. And then I've got 1 lime. I'm gonna use the juice of that. And then I've got some sirloin steak that I just had in my freezer, so I thawed it out and cut it up into kind of more manageable pieces. So we're gonna go ahead and season this up and let it sit in the fridge for a while so it can marinate. So I'm just gonna kind of drizzle the juice of 1 lime over this half. Now, you always wanna check and see if your seasoning blend has salt in it, and this does happen to have salt in it, so I'm not gonna add any salt to this. Obviously that's a personal choice, but you definitely don't want it to be too salty. And then I'm not gonna add any oil to this either because I want to save on calories, and when I cook this in a hot skillet, I probably will add just a bit of oil to the pan. I think I'll have enough of this seasoning left over that I can use it on some chicken later also, which, do you guys remember the tequila lime chicken from Applebee's? Do they still have that? Got the meat all coated with the lime juice and the spices. Obviously you can use this with any, you know, sort of Tex-Mex seasoning you have, or even taco seasoning. My goal with this is just to make this cooked steak, and then I'm gonna cut it into cubes, kind of like Chipotle does, and then I can use it in burritos and burrito bowls and quesadillas and stuff like that throughout the week. So you wanna kind of try and squeeze some of the air out of this bag so that the marinade can have good contact with the meat. And then I'm probably gonna stick this in the fridge for about 3 hours. This is just like a super hot pan with a tiny little bit of vegetable oil in it. And I've got my steak here that's been marinating. So I'm just gonna take it out and add it to the pan and sear it on both sides. Here is my sirloin. So I let this rest until it was completely cool, and I obviously covered it so the juices would kind of stay in it. So now I'm just gonna slice this and cut it into small pieces and add it to a container. And as you can see, this steak is still a little bit pink. It's probably about medium, which is totally fine, because obviously if we use this in like a burrito bowl or something, we're gonna heat it back up, and then it'll cook the rest of the way, and hopefully it won't be as tough that way. And then I'm gonna, don't waste this juice, and drizzle it over the meat. By the way, I did try a piece of this, and that tequila lime seasoning is really good. If you see that at Whole Foods, definitely pick it up. But either way, glad to have this for this week's meal prep. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how I used some of this steak that I meal prepped. So I did make a steak quesadilla with a low carb tortilla and some Taco Bell sauce and some cheese. It was really good. And then another one of my favorite things to make are burrito bowls. So I used some cooked rice, which I'm going to show you how I prep that next. And then all kinds of toppings like cheese, lettuce, tomato, sour cream, basically whatever you want. It makes a great lunch. Okay, so I'm gonna prep some rice for the week because there's several different things that we can and do use it for. So I'm just using some white basmati rice, and I love cooking it in my Instant Pot. Okay, and then you just wanna add an equal amount of water. So I've got 4 cups of rice in there. I'm gonna add 4 cups of water. I added a tablespoon of salt. And this particular Instant Pot that I have, it's a 6-quart. I'll link the one I have down below, but I really like it because you can choose rice or grain, and then it gives you an option for white rice or brown rice. And so I just put it on white rice, and it will do low pressure 12 minutes, and then it'll do a 10-minute natural pressure release. Oh my gosh, look how much rice that made. I don't know why, but I didn't think it would make that much. But hey, now we've got rice. Another thing that I always like to meal prep a lot is salmon, and it always seems like I have salmon in my freezer, so I definitely didn't have to go out and buy this. But if you cook up salmon in your air fryer and have it in your fridge, you can use it for all kinds of things. I know that like leftover fish gets a bad rap, but what I like to do is flake it up once it's cold and put it on top of salads. You can also make salmon patties with it. You can make salmon rice bowls, like sort of like a sushi or a poke bowl, only with cooked salmon. So tons of things you can do with this, but for this particular batch, I'm just seasoning it super simply with lemon juice and salt and pepper, and I put it in my air fryer. I use the fish setting, but usually it's at 390 for around 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how thick your salmon fillets are, and then you can just put them in a container and they will keep for about 2 to 3 days in the refrigerator. Found these zucchini falafel in the freezer, so I'm gonna go ahead and fry these up with some nonstick spray in a skillet so I can have them for meal prep this week. So I can't remember if I said it or not, but these are actually zucchini falafels. So they taste a little bit different than traditional ones, but they're still really good. Since I just kind of sauteed these in cooking spray, the oil isn't gonna add any calories. However, they do taste really good, kind of shallow fried in olive oil or vegetable oil. But anyway, after I took them out of the skillet, I just added some salt to the top. I do recommend adding the salt to the top because I think it makes them taste a little bit better. And then you can eat these cold, which I do sometimes, like dipped in tzatziki sauce, or you can also heat them up briefly and put them like in a wrap or a salad or a bowl, which is probably what I will do. So I wanted to show you guys how I used these falafel. So basically I made a bed of green leaf lettuce. I heated up some of the falafel just in the microwave quickly and threw those on top. I added some tzatziki sauce, some cucumbers and tomatoes. If I would have had feta cheese, I would add it to this, but these are really easy to heat up, full of protein and super delicious. Okay, so I've got these extremely ripe bananas here, and I want to make something out of these, so I think I'm going to make some chocolate muffins. Okay, so I've got some sugar in my bowl here. I'm going to add my mashed bananas. I don't have quite enough, So I'm gonna add a few spoonfuls of plain applesauce just to make sure I've got enough moisture in there. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. I'm gonna add 1 egg. I'm cutting this recipe in half just because that's all the banana I have, but I'll link the one I'm using down below. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, flour. We're gonna add some baking powder. I don't have any cocoa powder, but I have raw cacao powder, and I think that's probably gonna work just as well. So I'm gonna put in a 1/4 cup of that, and then I need to get some salt. Last step is chocolate chips. And I've got half a banana that I chopped up. We're gonna fold that in as well. By the way, if you don't have one of these Danish dough whisks, I do recommend them for muffins. I'll link the one I have down below. I'm not sure how many muffins this is gonna make because I did half the batch, so I don't know, we'll start with 10 and see if that's enough. Of course, we're gonna use Christmas liners because, you know, who knows what season we're in around here. It's just whatever's on top of my pile of cupcake liners. So that actually made 9 because apparently I can't count. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these in the oven. Okay, so here's what the muffins look like. I've let them cool for a little bit here in the pan. So I'm gonna remove them to wire rack and let them cool the rest of the way. Okay, so there we have it, our 0 waste meal prep for the week. Hopefully this has inspired you to dig deep into your own freezers and fridge and pantry and use what you have to create some meals for your family this week. And don't forget to check out June's Journey and participate in their Green Game Jam activities. You'll be having fun and making a difference at the same time. Thanks for watching, and if you want to watch my last meal prep video, you can click on the screen right here.